Hey, this is Robert Monroe. We're going to do a little bit a no edit podcast. This is the podcast where I basically talk about whatever I want and I just play a little bit of keyboard underneath myself. It's all live, it's all not edited. That's why it's called no edit. And so I hope you enjoy. We're going to do something a little bit different today, which is I'm going to talk about what I would do if I was trying to go into music as a career now versus when I did, which was probably a little over 10 years ago. So let's talk about what is really different between those two periods and what is kind of the same. And then I want to talk about the general strategy of how I would build up my technique and my excellence and what you really need to be successful as a musician in the technical actually playing music side. And then I want to talk a little bit about the career at the end. We're going to see how quickly we can pop through these things. Still want to keep it not horribly long. So let's start out first with what is different, what's the same. I would say the biggest difference is the prevalence of online now. When I was getting into music, yes, online existed. Yes, it was a thing, but it was nowhere near as big a thing as it is now. We had Facebook, we had YouTube, but these were small little fledgling websites that barely anybody paid attention to. The world of music mostly was still the same as it had been for probably, 50 years at that point, where the main way that you were successful in music is you knew somebody who knew somebody, you got into a band, and when you were in a band, then you met more people through that band, and if you played well and were nice, they would invite you to play in other bands, and then over time you'd be playing in enough bands that you'd get enough work to work, and then you'd be able to go from there and build your career out. Nowadays, so much of the internet has changed so much, and then so little has also changed. So let's talk about what has changed. And I would say the location is less important in many ways than it used to be. I think my biggest regret, even back in my career, was I went to school at University of Iowa, and I have always stayed in the Midwest in the Chicagoland region. And Chicago is an amazing city if you just want to make a living and work. And that's actually one of the reasons why I stayed in the area, is because I've got a bunch of kids. Making money is very important to me, and I mean immediate money, not like, oh, making it big. It's like, no, just making sure that I have enough to pay the bills. And I would still recommend Chicago for that reason, for people who just want to pay the bills. But if you really want to grow your career, there is a definite ceiling, and that's because locationally there are limits to what you can reach, because ultimately you need someone to be able to notice you, to befriend you, and rely on you to then bring you up to that next level. This is where I do think things are a bit different. I think location is a bit less important now. You can pick anywhere on the map to live. You could pick a place with way less, cost of living, and then take that place and sort of use it as home base, and then build up your skills and your online presence until you are ready to then move around and travel and get to different places. Is this a great overall strategy for everyone? No, but it's actually viable now. And I would say even 10 years ago, that was not really viable. I honestly would not be half the musician that I am now if I had stayed in Iowa, for example. Iowa is a lovely place to play gigs and to get to know people, but back 10 years ago, if you were just doing music in Iowa, you just basically get stuck where it is. And there are some connections there, and there's some avenues out, but for the most part, you're going to need to go to a bigger city. I went to Chicago. Chicago has been very helpful. Again, though, there is a ceiling there. So if you're really interested in that more traditional career path, it's probably still makes sense, even today, to go to Nashville, to go to LA, to go to New York. But you don't have to, and that's the point I'm making. Let's get into the next topic, which I think this is really interesting, which is what skills on your instrument do you really need to be successful in music? And I'm going to make a semi-controversial take, which is not much. You really do not need to know your instrument that well to be successful. I went kind of the traditional route of learning a lot of classical and all sorts of jazz, all sorts of stuff. And lots of technique. And then kind of found my way near the end on, ear training and folk and country and all that stuff. In my opinion, I did it backwards if all you're trying to do is have a career. If you like to perform, if you like to collaborate with people, you really should pursue this very baseline level of skills. What is that baseline? You need general technique and music awareness of your instrument. So if that's keyboards and piano, it's knowing your way around a modern keyboard and knowing how to get a good sound out of it and how to play in a way that doesn't hurt yourself. If it's guitar, it would be knowing your way around amps, around different guitars, tones, that sort of thing. Drums, how to tune a drum set, how to hit in a way that you're not too loud or too soft. That type of stuff. You need to know that stuff, but then you also need to know scales and chords. Scales and chords, chords and scales. That's really it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nashville number system. Huge. Do you need to know the Nashville number system to gig? No, you do not. Super duper helpful. That would be my priority list. Learn your instrument, know it well, then know the Nashville number system or some corollary so that you can learn tunes. Then it would be ear training. So can you listen to a song and then be able to figure it out by ear? Then it would be sight reading. Now, if you're much, much younger, which this video makes no sense because this video is for people who are maybe like teens trying to get into music. But if you happen to be on here and you're 8 and you're listening to this, hey, learn to sight read first. It's a pain. And when you're young, you got more time and your brain is better used for it. So learn that sight reading. It really does help. That covers pretty much all the general skills. I guess the last thing I'd add on to the end of that is you should also be working on whatever style and genres you like the most, but that almost goes without saying because why are you trying to go into music if that's the case? Related to that, you should take every opportunity to play every style you can possibly imagine. Just say yes. Just say yes if you can do even a reasonable job. I mean, to the point of almost lying. Now, that gets us through the music part. It gets us through what's different from yesterday, 10 years ago when I started, to today. How about how you actually practically go into building up a reputation where you actually can get gigs and get work? Well, I think it helps to kind of know what type of work you want to get because, it's very different getting work, writing music for band or arranging stuff or producing stuff versus gigging and live entertainment. I have definitely been more successful in the live entertainment side of things, although I've written a lot of band arrangements and I've definitely recorded music before. But it all operates under the same principle, which is when you're young, when you're just starting out, your time is worth nothing. Don't be fooled by people on TikTok telling you, oh, you got to make sure that you're compensated well. No, you do not. You need to work for super cheap or even free. I would not work for paying somebody. That's probably a bad idea. But if you can work for free or for $25-50 for dinner that night, go for it. Do that for a few years. You're going to develop a network at that point. That network is going to start to give you opportunities. If you present yourself as being professional, you're clean, you show up on time, you dress appropriately, you learn the material ahead of time. All of this will start to make people have a good impression of you, and then they will give you better gigs. And what they'll start to do, and this has happened so many times for me, people will hire me on gigs because they want to look good. It's in their best interest, so they will hire you. That gets you in the door, and that gets you going, and over time, your rates should just kind of go like this. It's as simple as that. Now, I want to add in something, though, extra that was not something I did, but I think is something you should do now. And that is you should record and post non-stop and have a very high vested interest in how to do the online thing well. Why is that the case? Well, it's basically almost like if somebody gave you a lottery ticket every day and said, hey, here's a lottery ticket. You want to check the number or not? I mean, it's kind of up to you. Every time you make a video and you post it, yes, there's things to make it have a better chance. There's the quality, there's how it's edited. But ultimately, every time you make one video and you post it online, it has a chance to reach the right person. I'm not even talking about going viral. I'm just talking about someone seeing it and going, wow, that's someone I want to work with. That's something I like to see. So make it representative of you. Make it something that you can feel confident about. Does not need to be perfect, by the way. It just needs to be something that shows that you're a serious person, or, you know, something about yourself that people can resonate to. That would be the extra tidbit, the extra sauce I would add on to my core strategy. Things to avoid. Unserious people. If you're serious about making it in music, do not hang out with people who are like no jobbers. You know, that's a big one. People are like no jobbing band people. Well, no, just don't play with them. As you get further in your career, anybody who is trying to take advantage of your time, this almost sounds like the opposite of what I was saying earlier, but if the details don't add up, they probably don't add up. The way I like to do it, and I'll leave you guys with this at the end, and then we can keep talking about this later if you like this style of video, is I like to have this 3-part sort of metric, and it is, do I enjoy the hang? If I enjoy the people, hey, I'm basically getting paid or getting experience to have a nice social environment. That's wonderful. The second is, do I enjoy the music? Is it challenging to me? Is it enjoyable music for me to play? Would I be playing this in my free time even if someone wasn't paying me? That's huge. And then the final and probably the most important thing if you're trying to make a career out of it is, am I getting paid for this? And am I getting compensated for where I am currently at in the universe? If it hits 2 of those 3, that's a great gig. If it hits 1 of those 3, that's something you should consider. If it hits none of those 3, just go do something else. Don't worry about it. More opportunities will come. I have been Robert Monroe in this video. I know, believe it or not, I didn't change who I was in the middle of the video. If you like this type of content, if you like this direction of maybe going more into one topic instead of covering a bunch of more topical things recently, go ahead and hit the like and then go ahead and comment. I'd love to cover more topics like this. Also, I've got a video coming out on music theory soon, so go ahead and follow so that you can stay ready for that. And until next time, see you later.